good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thanks for being a little bit patient with us. We're very excited, as we always are, to have our Thursday guest joining us. Today it's Jodi Anderson-Roper from, is it Cycle Bar Fargo or Fargo Cycle Bar?
Either one.
Either
Fargo
one.
Cycle Bar.
Cycle Bar
Either one.
Fargo, actually in West Fargo, but who's checking? Who's
Right.
counting? Yeah.
I mean, you just go across the street and you're in Fargo, and then you go.
Right.
So.
Yeah. So it's in the metro. It's the Cycle Bar.
Yeah.
There we go. That clears it up. And in addition to that, Jodi is also our friend, because I've known you a really long time, Jodi. I don't want to age, but I remember being at Courts Plus with you when you turned the last decade. So that was like, a number of years ago.
Yes, and I think even before that, a little bit.
A little bit, not a lot, but a little
Probably
bit.
At least 10 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's a long time, considering I don't consider myself an exercise person, to know the guru of exercise in the Fargo-Moorhead community.
Thank you.
Interesting thing. So we invited Jodi to come on for a really particular reason, and it's because we talk about alcohol addiction because that is the particular addiction that lived in our house. Yeah. But we know that it is a much broader conversation, and that you don't have to have a life-threatening addiction to have something be really out of balance. And so we thought we would bring Jodi on because addiction can also spread. I don't understand this, but it can spread to the exercise community.
Absolutely.
So can you just talk a little bit about sort of that concept, Jodi? Because, for me, it's, all right, I will give this 51 minutes, 3 days a week, and that includes travel time.
If you're lucky.
And no more. So it's hard for me to fathom. Can you talk about that a little bit?
More times than not, when we do see people with addiction to exercise, they are recovering from something else, from another addiction. Sometimes one addiction leads to another addiction. And the term, when people say, well, now this is a healthy addiction, there's no such thing as a healthy addiction. You may have a healthy habit, but exercise addiction, it is very real. You get that buzz, that good feeling, and then you start craving it more and more and more. And if you don't kind of gain control or nip it in the bud, it just can explode like any other addiction and not lead to good things. Yeah.
What are the outcomes of that kind of addiction?
You're going to see a lot of injury. A lot of injury when you have addiction. You will lose a lot of things that I have seen in the past. Is you lose a lot of friends, family, because you don't do your social anymore. You don't do your family anymore because you want to go and exercise. So instead of going to that meal or instead of going to that reunion, you want to exercise. It's kind of like it could go in hiding like any other addiction. Injury is the biggest thing. You get sick. One thing people don't understand is if you exercise so much and you keep going, you're actually doing yourself a disservice. You're not going to gain those gains like you want to gain. You are going to go in reverse and start breaking down that muscle, and your resting heart rate won't be resting anymore. So there's a lot of things that can happen mentally and physically.
That is so interesting. So I'm going to just say, because again, I am a much different exerciser than say you are. If someone were to have asked me 6 months ago if I thought you were addicted to exercise, without having any real idea that it's an actual thing, I would have said, yeah, I think she might be, and here's what I'm basing it on.
Okay. I
remember being in class with you one day, and you said, was your daughter a C-section, or was she a planned delivery?
She was. Yeah, and I know where you're going.
And your doctor wanted like a morning delivery, and you're like, nope,
my God,
I'll be at exercise, right?
I remember this story.
Can we schedule her induction to be a little bit later so I can get my workout in first?
Yes. Okay. So that's all I'm basing it on, which is
and that kind of sounds like a little bit of a, that was probably a half kidding comment, half not kidding comment, knowing that that day was going to be full of work.
sure.
But no, I wouldn't say when a person is addicted, they can't go a day without it. Their exercise becomes longer and longer and longer because they don't get that same buzz. So they got to keep going longer.
Okay.
Like you have to drink more alcohol to get that buzz, but now
Right.
you're going to have to exercise more and harder. They'll exercise through sickness. Do you exercise when you're injured? A lot of them do. And I still see some that will come and they will work out even though they have a stress fracture. But they'll find a way to do it. So to me, that would be more of an addiction than
Sure.
Yep.
I certainly do not want to be telling you what you are. I just remember hearing that and thinking, okay, that's a serious commitment to exercise.
But I think there is that fine line. What is a healthy habit? And she's dedicated versus, are you addicted?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a fine line, actually.
Okay.
There is.
So I have never asked you this because, we don't linger at the end of spins. So I've never had the chance to ask you this. How in the world can you possibly have the unbelievable arms that you have without longer and longer and longer exercise? I mean, that's a little off topic, but
lift. We have a gym at home that I do some lifts.
Yeah, I feel like.
But I've been doing it too for so long that I think my body is it is what it is now. I've been teaching for 34 years. So it's harder to maintain it though. It's harder.
Yeah, it is. Well, you're maintaining it beautifully.
Thank you.
Class that we're in, I just look at your arms and think, that's what arms could look like. Really nice.
Yours could get there.
Yeah, they're not going to. I'm just going to be really honest. I know my limitations. Okay, so when you and I were exchanging some conversation earlier this week, I was telling you that this isn't really a question, but it's a conversation I would like the two of you to have a little bit, because you maybe didn't know before we revealed all this how actually incredibly important Cycle Bar is in our funny little lives, because Maz was in the hospital working to get sober when you opened, and so I came to a free class.
We went to the free
That's
one.
right. Yep.
And there's this incredible moment in Cycle Bar. Every class there's a connect song, which doesn't mean you shut down, but it's really an opportunity to not be thinking about your tension or your RPMs or whatever, and to really connect with your brain. And I was so grateful that the music was loud and that it was dark, because we got to that moment. And I think Maz had been in the hospital about 5 days. So the uncertainty was like at 1,000%. And I sobbed and sobbed and sobbed through that entire class. No, that entire song, because it was kind of the first time that I had allowed myself to really think about, all right, what might this look like going forward? Right. Okay, so that's my first moment with Cycle Bar. And then Maz and I had fought all the time about exercising beforehand. And when I say exercising, I mean taking the dog for a walk or walking around a track. We're not talking about hardcore lifting.
Right.
We used to go to the NDSU gym.
We did a million years ago, and we did some stuff at other places. But then when he was about to leave rehab, I said to him, well, I've been going to Cycle Bar. Would you go with me? And it was a little bit of a test just to see where he was at, because I expected him to do exactly what he'd always done. And he said to me, yeah. And doggone it, you have not missed a friggin' class since that moment.
The first one, what's his name? Richard Conte's son.
No, Patrick Conte used to.
Patrick.
He was. So Dana signed me up for I think it was a Saturday.
Yep, it was a 30-minute class
thing. So I went to that.
Oh.
Dana introduced me to Patrick. I did the 30 minutes and thought, I'm going to go home and sleep for the best part of a week.
Yeah.
Right.
But when Dana said, do you want to keep going? Let's buy a pass. And I went, all right. And then it's not, I'm not I'm not addicted to going to Cycle Bar. It's just, for me, it was a new start. a way to get, my life back on track. And it was something nice to do.
Right.
I could feel benefits. It kind of wore me out. So getting used to getting more sleep, actually going to sleep and not passing out. That was
Right.
part of it.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even say it's a routine. It's just,
He's lying his
no,
face
I'm not.
off.
It's something that I'd like to do, because I'm afraid if I get blasé about it and go, I won't go this time. I mean, we didn't go when the pandemic started.
Right.
And I'm fine with going on holiday and not going to cycle bar. I mean, I miss going, but I don't sit there and we're in my mum's house in Windsor going, oh, I should be on a bike. I think, yay,
Right.
up cream and walk around the house. But for me, it's a nice, healthy routine that sometimes I think I used to worry about stopping doing it in case I kind of lapsed back in the old habits, which I was afraid would lead me to, drinking again. But I've got over that. I just like going, and for no reason. There's no buzz. I just feel healthier. My doctor has commented and what my resting heartbeat is now and what it used to be. And he just says, you look, he said, you're fantastic. You look fantastic. I said, I feel great. And he was pushing questions to see if I'd become addicted to cycling, because he said,
yeah.
But I think I managed to convince him that I mean, we used to go 4 times a week. We used to go on a Sunday, but that kind of got a bit too much.
Jodi, an hour. That's a big
We used to do the hour Sunday.
Oh my God.
That 15 minutes, actually, it makes a difference, doesn't it?
Certainly does.
Right.
I couldn't do it for much longer. Because you get to the Monday class and you're sitting, God.
Yeah,
Right. Three's great, especially with such high intensity. I mean, it's not a joke, that
And
class.
good.
So,
It doesn't. I look at people who jog. Like my mum's partner was a serious long distance runner in his youth.
his knees are so buggered now.
yeah.
And I just look at people who are jogging around Fargo and I think, stop! For God's sake, stop doing
Don't
it.
run.
Yeah.
No, it's a good low impact thing to do. Absolutely.
So you just posted, I think last week or maybe earlier this week, that you started Cycle Bar for a particular reason, above and beyond the exercise benefits of it. But you talked about community. So can you talk about that? Because that's definitely a real thing at Cycle Bar.
It really is. When Dave and I decided to open Cycle Bar, it wasn't for any other reason other than to give a place there was really no boutiques yet, no boutique gyms. The only really boutique type thing in Fargo was maybe a yoga studio, but there was no Orange Theory or Solid Core yet. So we thought Fargo needs something like that. We had seen it on vacation, so we checked into it and we went to a few cycle bars and saw how close knit people were and nice everybody was there, and the charity rides really were a huge part of it too. So then we decided to open it for the same reasons. We wanted somewhere to people come and feel safe, to have fun, no judgment. And it has blown my expectations because there's so many new friendships there. Mm-hmm. People that do things inside and outside of the gym all the time. They even spend holidays together now, in their weddings. So people have gotten married who have met there. So it's really surpassed what we wanted it to be in that sense, for sure.
Well, one of the things that we talk about a lot and hear from other recovering addicts is how isolating addiction is and how lonely it is and how solitary it often is. And so one of the things that I imagine you like about it is that it's none of those things.
No, it isn't.
And yet it's still an individual thing. I don't want to be responsible for a team's winning or losing.
Right.
I don't want to have to work that hard if I don't want to that day.
Or Dana on Dana. Yep.
Yeah. No, it's a very interesting way to get exercise. You're right. Sometimes I used to play soccer back in my youth, but that was always don't let the team down. Oh my God, we've all got to pull together. And then you get arsey with someone and you think, you were out drinking all night and you can hardly stand up, and now you want to, we're letting you be our attacking midfield player. But you know, when you go to cycle bar, it's just you just do the exercise, and you don't have. And you always say, everyone says, you know, if you don't want to follow me, just do what you can.
Do you? Yep. Because we all feel good some days, and we all feel like crap some days, and you're there. So my thing is move. Just keep moving.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so Jodi, let's pretend that you are talking to someone who's coming off of an addiction of any kind, and
Yep.
they come to you because they're wanting to do some exercise. What do you tell people who are Maz 4 years ago? Because you and he didn't have that conversation then, because we didn't tell anybody he was coming off of addiction.
Right.
What can you recommend to people?
That's a good question.
Know the signs. They always say if you took this quiz, you could tell, you know, what, are you an exercise addict or aren't you, or are you kind of heading that way, kind of thing too. And if you're kind of heading that way, you need to take those immediate steps right away to kind of back off a little bit. And that may mean, for example, you guys used to go 4 days a week. I would have, you know, let's start with 3. Let's go to 3. And you really have to use that self-discipline not to come back to the gym later that day. You know, I've had people addicted that they will come 2, 3, 4 times a day. And if they don't get what they feel from that 3rd time, they'll do it a 4th time to, you know, so you do see it a lot. And they don't just do cycle bar, then they go to another gym and another gym, and by now you've exercised 4 or 5 hours in one day. So what I tell them is you really got to keep a grasp on how often you go to the gym. And you really have to force yourself not. I know it sounds weird to probably the average person, but you have to force yourself not to
Work out.
Yeah. Easier said than done. Once you get past a certain level, though,
Sure.
then you want more and more. And
don't you think, I mean, nobody says to someone who is falling into alcoholism, hey, good for you. You drank a whole bottle of Jack Daniels. But if somebody were to say to me, boy, I worked out 3 times yesterday, I might say, good for you, because we've ascribed so much value and benefit to working out,
right,
that it's seen as an admirable thing. I mean, you're really, when I asked you to come on, I had no idea that this was actually going to be a real addiction conversation, because I didn't know.
Yeah.
It's so interesting.
You know, there's some people who say, oh, like, I think I already said this, it's my healthy addiction.
Yeah.
I used to be addicted to marijuana, but now I'm just addicted to exercise. That's a healthy addiction. When in turn, I would probably rather have you smoke marijuana than be an exercise addict, because you can do your heart. Not that I want anybody on marijuana.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, you can do so much damage.
Yeah.
So much damage. I mean, you do so much cardio and endurance. I mean, your heart does start to enlarge because it is a muscle.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, and the injuries are really, really there.
Well, it makes you wonder if they're fighting through an injury, then they must be on some kind of painkiller, right?
Then they're on a painkiller as well.
And if they're going to the doctor and get one, it's probably an opioid-based painkiller, right? So they end up with the possibility of that.
There's a lot of that. In fact, someone whipped it out of their purse, you know.
Wow.
So there is a lot of that, but people just don't think it's exercise as a bad addiction. But there's such that fine line.
Yeah.
You know, if you go 2, 3 times a day, once in a blue moon, of course, that's not an addiction. You're just
trying something out.
Trying something. Yeah. But when it becomes a daily habit, it often leads to, you know, body dysmorphia, anorexia, bulimia.
Of course.
Sure.
Yes, it sure would.
They go hand in hand quite a bit.
Well, I'm thinking about a friend of mine when we were in college who I can look back now and clearly had an exercise addiction. I mean, she would get up at 4 a.m. and work out for 2 or 3 hours. She would work out at night. She would go at lunch. And we all thought it was kind of bonkers, but we certainly didn't take it serious. You know what I mean? We didn't concern ourselves with it. And I can think, you know, so that was 30 years ago. it took her a long time to get past that. And I think she probably is now, but that's a lot of years of, again, being in isolation and solitary activities and feeling bad about yourself. I mean, why else would you do that if you weren't berating yourself for not feeling good enough that you could stop?
It's exactly why they do it, because they don't think they're skinny enough or fit enough, and they keep doing it and keep doing it, and it's just a vicious cycle.
I got a question. Have you noticed since the pandemic? I mean, the news is full of people that, you know, they're getting LASIK on their eyes because they're fed up with their glasses fogging up, and there's people getting plastic surgery because they think how they hate each other on Zoom. Have you noticed an increase in people that are coming more often?
Now that you say it, yeah, I could probably think of a handful for sure.
Well, for an addict, time is not a friend. I mean, we've talked a lot about how terrible it would have been if Maz were still drinking through this, because he left the house to stop drinking.
Yeah.
So if he were just here all the time, he would have drunk all the time.
I've talked to about 4 or 5 of my friends who we go to AA together, and all of them have said the same thing. They all said, I would be terrified if I wasn't enjoying sobriety when this pandemic hit.
So for people who have time and can go to spin or to wherever they're going, a different kind of time than they would have had when they had to be in an office, I suppose that it has the same effect.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, kind of blown my mind.
Yeah, and I think there's a. I mean, we saw it on our little Facebook there that there's some people who didn't know that it was a real thing. You know, we had one lady that this has probably been about 10 years ago, because I used to do some personal training as well, and I would train her, and I had to quit training her because I felt like I was enabling.
Yeah.
You know, she really had that addiction. Very much suffered with anorexia and exercise. I mean, she would just not eat and exercise hour upon hour. And then when she did eat, it was very restrictive. Like, I remember one day she wrote her food journal, and she was very honest. And it was 1 apple and 2 saltine crackers.
Gee, the amount of damage she was doing to herself.
The whole day. Well, it actually killed her. She is no longer here. She suffered a massive heart attack.
Yeah.
I mean, it just eats it. If people start exercising so much, it will eat away at your muscle. But what they don't know is your heart is also a muscle.
Yeah.
So it will start eating away there too.
And if you get thinner, your heart rate increases anyway because you're always cold.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
So yeah, it is a thing that people need to.
Well,
I mean, you don't want to discourage people from working out, but it's truly something that you have to have balance.
Well, there's a couple of things I want to add. One of them is, before I forget, I want to tell you how wonderful it is, and I think anyone listening here should mark this, that you actually care enough to look out for these signs. I find that to be fantastic, and it's a testament to you as a human being. Another thing is that for years I used to teach. Well, I still do, but I used to teach addiction before I realized I was, in fact, an addict. And I used to joke about joggers high, which I don't anymore.
We joked about it on the show.
But I don't joke about it in class anymore, because this is a problem. If people, I used to say, if you're running a marathon, you get to, I think it's like mile 18 when you hit the wall, and then you break through that, and then you're in joggers high. And then I used to talk about the endorphins and the serotonin levels, and I thought, yeah, that's an addiction, and I'm making fun of it, you hypocrite. So I don't do that anymore, but it is frightening that.
It is.
I mean,
and exercise addicts actually go through the withdrawal as well.
Yeah, because we even
they have to go again.
Yeah.
Yep.
I even said to him, in my mind, I even said this just last week, in my mind, the 3 big hitters are drugs, alcohol, and gambling. But, going to a gym is, also obviously a clear issue too.
It is. It is. A lot of different addictions.
Interesting.
Another question. Lots of people have asked me this. They said, "Why do you go to spin?" And I think another thing that I think you did in spin. I don't know if it was every exercise place in Fargo because I only go to one.
Yes, we only do the one.
But everyone said, well, how do you go to that? Why are you going? Isn't it dangerous? They've shut gyms down. Why are you going to cycle bar?
Oh,
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is my take of it. All right, you have to wear a mask. They take your temperature. They send you home if you have a temperature or if you don't look well or if you look sweaty.
right.
Before you exercise.
Before.
Please use sanitizers. You get on the bike, there's an option to wipe down the bike. You wipe it down afterwards. To me, that was actually cleaner than when I was teaching face-to-face last semester when people were still being in lockdown. So
Right.
how much work did it go into making Cycle Bar as safe as possible when you reopened? What did you actually have to do?
There was a lot of work to go into that. I mean, we had to clean top to bottom, every little inch. Another thing that Dave and I did do is we installed a hospital grade air purifier that they can't guarantee kills the coronavirus, obviously, because it's too new, but it does kill at least 99% of viruses out there. So just to keep our air clean, and it filters every 30 minutes. So we did do that. We've got one in the studio and then one outside in the other area. But I mean, we had to space classes apart. We had to make them smaller. You know, we had to take bikes out. We rented bikes. We had to space the bikes, and it was a lot of work to close and then to reopen and follow all the rules. I mean, the rules have gotten better, but it was rough.
I mean, you stopped in the lockers too, right? And didn't you close the showers, if I remember correctly?
Closed the showers, we closed the lockers. We didn't do towels for a while because people could bring their own towels.
Yep.
The lockers were just more things that people were touching. So we just thought, go in and out. And the weather wasn't too bad when we did that. So people can just go in and out. And
Sure. Well, Jodi, this has been really interesting, super illuminating.
Yes, it has, as always.
And I think probably really an important conversation that does not get had.
I don't think it does either.
Yeah, I mean, I've just never heard anybody lay out what you just laid out for us. And wow, I will never think about it the same way again. And I will also stop joking about the runner's high because I've clearly never experienced it. For good or for bad.
All those marathons we run together,
yeah. But mostly we wanted to have you on just to say thanks for being such a great
thank you.
piece of our journey into sobriety. I gripe about spin a lot, but he's absolutely right in dragging me along. It is the right thing to do. I am always glad I've gone, and I don't gripe about it because it's a bad environment or because it's not an incredible place to be. You have created a great place.
You certainly have. It's a fun.
Thank you.
If you want to go sit on a bike for 50 minutes,
45 let's not
minutes
extend
and
it.
exercise, it's pretty much a nice place to do it.
Absolutely. So
Thank you.
if you're watching this and you feel like this could be something great to try, is the first class still free, Jodi? If you've never gone?
It is. Yes.
So come and try one class. Nobody will demand your home address and come and accost you if you don't go back. Come and try a class. And Maz and I are there Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 6:30. So at least one other addict is there and is enjoying it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we love you both. You're faves. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We really appreciate having you in our life. And we loved this conversation, Jodi.
So did I. It was very fun.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Anytime.
We'll see you next week on Wednesday for
Sounds
Empower.
good.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Jodi.
Okay. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Okay.